Hi guys, and welcome back to RedStone Productions. Today we are visiting a very nice mastering studio for a dear friend of mine.
Hi guys, hi Pietro, hi guys.
Hello Marco.
Bit of background. We come from the same city in Italy. We come from Roma. It's a melting pot of personalities.
Romans in Amsterdam.
Romans in Amsterdam. There's quite a few. So I came over to study sound after having an initial normal start with university, like all kids do.
You did your bachelor degree in Rome, right?
I did my degree. I had my degree in Rome. I originally started in Padua, which is another Italian city, the first year. Family reasons, and then we moved back to Rome, and I went on studying electronics.
Okay.
So I did 5 years.
Quite handy as well when it comes down to
absolutely,
your new career, right?
Absolutely. On the paper, definitely handy, but we know the university in Italy, it's a lot of books, a lot of theory, not much practice. Okay. So on the paper, I could maybe build the most awesome amplifier. But in practice, nobody ever showed me a transistor, for example. So if I saw one, I was like, this thing, I was studying university, but then I also had this strong interest in music, playing in a band, you know, I was like the keyboardist. So originally I started with piano and then organ, and then I got into synths, originally with the band.
Okay.
And then it's funny because a friend gave me a tape of like electronic stuff, produced here in Holland, very underground stuff. And I listened to it and I was like shocked because these sounds were really like organic, but really electronic. And you know, the fascinating thing about cassette tape, it has this sound. At the same time, they represented like me exploring synthesis, but also being fascinated by this northern country, which is Holland, because the production were coming from here.
Yeah.
So I was like done with university, and I was like, fuck it, I want to do sound. And then I looked for SAE, because at the time SAE was the only place in Italy that you could give a bit of credit, you know, like, you know how it is in Italy, it's like university, you need degrees, so it's that kind of direction. SAE was giving you a diploma, so something that with a title, you know. Like.
True, and pretty much giving you all of the basic skill sets to get your hands wet with the actual, putting the...
to figure out a lot of things that, you know, like I was already doing, but without really knowing my way. And, but then again, living in Rome, if I had to change city at the time, I was like, I don't want to go to Milan.
I had the same.
You know, like I wouldn't change city and go to another Italian city. Let me just go a bit further. So I went to Holland. I came to Holland because...
of course, for the guys out there, SAE in Italy is only present in Milan. We're both from Rome, and I think, we had kind of a similar thing. We're like, do I really like to move out of Rome to move to Milan to study at SAE? Maybe let's try something else. And Amsterdam actually was the place.
I point out in Europe, London was the other option. It was a bit too expensive at the time.
Right.
And Holland was the only place in English, like where they teach in English. So I came over to visit, and I visited the school. Yeah. And I still remember the day I came in, and the school gave me this really nice feeling because at the time it was in North, well, it's still in North, but at the time it was this kind of secluded, you know, like a bit of a, like far away from the center. Plus North is something like another situation. Yeah. So I arrived there, I was like, where am I? But the school was really cool, at least, you know, in my eyes at the time. Yeah. And Leslie, who used to work there, gave me the tour.
Okay. I have never had the pleasure of meeting this guy.
You never met Leslie, no?
No, Leslie, no.
The guy was cool. Then he left city, went back to England, lost track.
Got it.
But he showed me the SSL, and it's funny because, you know, like I wanted to do EMP, which is the electronic music production.
Of course, yeah.
And because that was kind of natural. And then maybe with the option to then do the diploma course, so the more intensive
of the audio engineering one, yeah.
Correct. And talking to Leslie, he told me, because we entered the SSL room, and he could see my eyes going like, this is a real SSL, you know, like I was already been into sound and studios, and I saw a real SSL, I was like, man, this is so cool, and all these knobs, and then I already knew that the SSL featured a compressor on every channel. And I told Les, I was like, this is the one with all the compressors per channel. He looked at me, I was like, yeah, man, that's the one. And then he said, maybe you should just keep the EMP and fucking do the diploma course right away. And I was like, what are you doing? I was like, yeah, maybe, sure. So I, long story short, came over and did the 1 year.
Got it.
One of the funniest, coolest years of my life, man. It's like, because it's like studying something you really like all of a sudden in a cool environment with friends, people all interested. And at the time was a cool.
It's a really nice vibe back in the days.
Yeah. When you arrived, it was still kind of that vibe.
It was.
Those few years were fun. Like a lot of colleagues that we have now of the same course, eventually are around the world doing their thing. Did SE, been teaching for SE a lot. Then I got offered a job in TV.
Right.
So I migrated from SE to TV to do like mixing, basically, promo mixing, broadcasting stuff. Paid well, not fun at all. At least for my taste, you know.
Right.
People like it. It's actually can be fun, but
it's mainly post-production.
Post-production was mainly mixing for broadcast, basically.
Got it.
And it's cool at the beginning, then it becomes repetitive. Then you get a lot of stress from other people in the same company because the
timeline, boom,
commercial,
boom, boom,
like
super fast.
Commercial world. So exactly, you need stuff right away, blah blah blah. But in all of this, I got offered to master a record because I was already kind of, mastering something you don't really decide to do. You kind of end up doing because. Like a lot of things in audio, you perfection your skills naturally in a certain direction.
Yeah.
And then, given the response of people, you start to take yourself a bit more serious. Because you do it, and then you do it again, and then people have always positive response, and then you start to get into it, and then you get better, and then but let's say that my lucky shot, which is a label I still work for, which is the Delsin label from Amsterdam.
Oh, yeah. I checked your resume, and you did a lot of work for them, actually.
Yeah, that's in a lot of ways. It's almost 10 years that I worked for them. And at the time, I was connected from the production side because we were producing music. And this music was going to be hopefully brought out by the label. The guy from the label was like, your stuff always sounds good. We have a deadline, so we need an LP to be mastered ASAP. Give it a go.
Okay.
And it's like, you don't realize it, but that's your lucky shot. Because you do it well, the artist is happy, the label is happy, and then it just starts like that.
And then snowballs into working more and more for them.
Yeah, and then he happened to be like do another job, and then they're happy. And then of course, if a label finds an engineer that works well for less money, it's deal. So they hired me because at the time I was starting, so obviously my fees were like lower than what they are nowadays compared to the bigger studio that were like already big at the time, But so it was, and I remember the thing is, mastering is about being sure about what you hear.
Correct.
And it's a combination of being comfortable and being sure. And at the time, I had my comfort zone at home and the security of the sound in the studios in school.
Okay.
So my first mastering gig went like this. Started at home, because first I needed to feel the music in a way that I was comfortable about. So I played the record on my speakers at home, the mighty HR824. Yes, Mackie speakers at home.
Made in the US.
And
still.
by combination, my house had the non-parallel walls.
All right,
so perfect. It sounded just fucking fine. And I was like, okay. So I started at home, mastered on my old PC, like tower. Yeah. And then in the evening, I got my PC. I went in school and installed it in the studio there, and I went on the whole night to perfection the masters. And then I sent them out, and the guy was super happy.
There you go.
I was like, it works. So for a few years since then, I started to work nighttime. So I was always working in school with a laptop, doing mastering like that at the beginning. It was fun, first years. I had my laptop, Logic, optical connection into the converter there in school. So it was just monitored through all in the box.
Okay, that's interesting because that's how you started. You didn't have your own, let's say, massive outboard gear setup.
No,
not at all. You were working off a laptop, playing out in 2 different speaker setups, the homey one and the one.
Well, at home I didn't really do it anymore because then I got more used to the sound of the studio. And of course, at that point you got comfort and good sound.
Then,
because it was nighttime, so school was quiet.
True.
In North, there's nothing around. At some point, some nights, I was like, man, 5 a.m. you exit the place.
I'm still here.
Bicycle, go get your ferry.
I had those, man. I had, that's the same. I brought bands and recorded them at school, and I would pretty much start at 10 p.m. and finish at 7 a.m. Yeah, so I would get out, and my colleagues would get in, and like, yep.
Yeah, a couple of times they just found me there, all night long.
It's one of the good and the bad side of it.
A couple of times I had to supervise in the morning. So I would just do the night and then work so I got a few hours and then arrive home completely destroyed.
That's hardcore.
But you could do that, you know, like 27, 28, whatever.
There you go. And your very first, let's say, studio setup?
My very first studio setup was my very first investment that I did into mastering, which was speakers, good converter, and one decent outboard gear. And guess what? Well, besides the speakers, converter is there, monitoring controller is there, and the Avalon
is still there.
10 years that thing, man.
There you go. So
I still have it.
That's again, that speaks volume of how important it is also not to cheap out at the very beginning and kind of wait, learn the gear, get to use them, and then it's like, I think this will be a staple, it's something that will survive.
Yeah, I mean, converter is basic.
You need them.
Speakers basic, monitor controller of quality basic. I could have saved a bit on this.
Probably, yeah.
But I was like, you know what, you take a loan, you invest like 9K, you invest 10 or 10.5K. Doesn't matter much on the long term, but
especially if you see, you know, if you see the amount of work increasing, and it's like, okay, that's a good investment I can do right now.
And I kept the speakers for a long time too, like 10 years almost. The Mighty PMC.
Oh, those were
my
the first.
Okay,
you already started with the big boys.
Yeah, because I had good colleagues, like all colleagues that were into the field, and I asked them, I was like, I wanna get a basic mastering pack.
What was that? Those were the PMC IB
1S.
1S. Yeah, those
passive with external
ones.
amp.
Okay.
The amp was the equivalent of a D-class amp, like what's it called? Hypex, not that another brand American, but similar.
But Class D, but pretty clean.
D, super clean,
Apparently
no emphasis, just flat out. Not as entertaining and engaging for those speakers, not as a Bryston set, which is next level.
I mean, I remember visiting you the previous studio where you were, is Nachtlab.
Yeah, that was the best studio I've had so far.
Yeah?
Yeah, that was the studio where I grew my career to the point that I could now do this for a living.
Right.
That was the Nachtlab studio, and that was the second studio.
That was alright, okay.
And that's the studio where I could really exploit the gear that I had, because, you know, the gear goes along with your monitoring situation, your room. And the PMCs originally were into this smaller studio. It was still kind of a room in a room, but kind of, you know, like a bit amateurly produced, smaller. So the speakers had their sound, but also a lot of
But the coloration of the room was
so,
still pretty important.
So it was a lot of headphones and double check, you know. I wasn't as sure as I was with the sound.
I mean, let me bring up this point, if I can. So very often also when I teach mastering or introduction to mastering to my students, the most important thing, besides your own set of ears, of course, that we can't really do anything about that, it's the actual monitoring setup, which doesn't have to, which is the combination of the room, the acoustic treatment, and the actual speaker setup.
Paramount.
So that is, because what you cannot hear, you cannot fix it.
No.
Basically, if you're driving blind, there's no way you can really assess.
And if you don't hear it properly, it's more difficult to make an informed
decision on
objective decision, so a decision that translates well in the outside world.
You are the last quality control check before the release sees the market.
Yeah, correct.
So you want to make sure that it's loud enough, competitive enough, matches specific references, but that it's going to play out no matter on which setup.
That's definitely one. Yeah. But that's the point. Like if you refine your listening environment to the point that you know when it sounds just right, that means it translates as best as it can everywhere. That's the point. The difficult part is to get to that situation where you know your speakers room combination so well, and you are used so much to work into this environment that you can just decide something and be sure about it.
I mean, that's super true.
That's why master engineers of a certain caliber, they stick in the same room with the same speakers for like 5 years.
Indeed. You cannot fix what you cannot hear properly, and you cannot second guess yourself at the mastering stage, because there's nobody else going to take care of that.
No, exactly. It all contributes to build this sort of feeling of the sound. The other side of the story is how far you can afford a reproduction system of a certain quality. Yeah. And also you arrive there, you know, like at the time I already had a few years with the Mackies, so the PMCs were kind of the natural step up, because you invest some more money, not so much, and their speakers are really, really revealing. Like they're top speakers. Like if they're set up nicely, I still really like the sound of those. But then I got these in end of last year, so beginning of this year.
What are these for the guys out there?
These are a modern conception of speaker. These are speakers that integrate a lot of electronics, and they are the opposite of a traditional passive speaker like a PMC speaker, because PMC speaker is just a passive designed to perform in a certain way, but the room is very influential. These things, they have DSP controlled electronics that first of all keeps the sound extremely focused. So the way all the drivers are aligned and the way the sound is projected toward you from both speakers at the same time, it's very accurate. So already that represents a clearer vision. Plus, they have a tricky driver setup that helps to direct the sound mostly in front of you. So they have basically what we call a cardioid polar pattern. And this cardioid polar pattern goes down to like seriously down, like 50 hertz. It's very directive, so, and because of that, it focuses the sound on you rather than the room.
So the room gets less excited in a way, so the coloring of the room itself diminishes just by changing and setting up these sort of speakers, because they are hyper-directive.
Correct.
And they keep this directivity all the way down.
Yeah, all the way down to very sub-frequencies.
Yeah, which
then
is...
of course, like, for a mastering setup with a room that let you do that, I got them with the extension, so the extension gives you at the same time more power, more bass, and a lower frequency range. So,
I mean, these are the Key 3 with the BXT.
Yeah, these are the Key 3 with the BXT extension, so the bass extension, and they go down to 19. But they go down to 19 with ease. That's the thing. So it's like, they are so revealing. It's like, at the beginning, it was like I was opening some sort of microscope into the sound. See, at the mid-range, it's like stupid. And that also represented a whole lot of extra information that I wasn't used to, you know, like it's normal. Like now I hear better and I hear more, I can refine my decisions.
I think, as with any new set of speakers, it took a while to get used. It's like, okay, is this too bright? Oh, no, this is the new mid-range punch. That's the reference.
Correct. Like how much the 3 kilohertz, the 1 kilohertz, they penetrate your ears, and how much is enough and how much is too much. Indeed. That's the thing. Using them, same room. And now, funny thing.
It's not a it's definitely not an entry-level set of speakers.
No, but it's relatively affordable. That's the thing, because if you think in those terms, like this is kind of top level. Yeah. Like this can compete against the massive Channel X flush mount. You know, like
with the BMW 802.
Yeah, with the BMW, you name it, with the big MB2A. You know, like maybe with those in a bigger room, you get more volume.
Correct.
But the accuracy of the sound and what you can hear, it's...
And the focus of it, as you were saying.
The focus and the bass, man. It's like that tight bass. It's like... But then again, you see like headphones, and those, to the contrary, those are like some crappy DJ headphones. They're nothing too special, but they have a sound. And I use them for super long. So they represent another reference, and they're here. So all of a sudden, they're here in any space. So I can, start a master at home, come here, do a check on the speakers, so balance it out, and this helped me to transition from the old system to this system, to use it as a sort of like temporary reference or something that I can carry with me. And it depends, of course, also on the complexity of the music, like if you're doing some just house, electronic stuff where the important is the vibe.
Speaking of which, so, I mean, when it comes down to clients and what sort of music you normally get to master?
I started with electronic music, mostly house, techno, sometimes disco, nu, Italo. And then what happens is that you do it and you do it and you do it and you do it, so your name kind of starts to bounce around.
Okay.
And then you get clients a bit from everything, from people that listen to your music, people that listen to the label you work for, people that follow an artist, and they are interested into finding another mastering engineer because they also produce music. People that for example, you work for a label on a stable basis, and the label has a certain roster of artists. Yeah. So maybe you get to master a release from a certain artist, and the artist releases on another label. They are well impressed by your work, so they like to work with you again, and they propose it to the other label. The other label let you do the job or not, depends.
course.
Sometimes it happens that the other label likes your work and then they offer you more releases.
Yeah, I mean.
So for a good, like, let's say 2017, 18 and 19, I was working like this, so mastering around and also working for TV.
Right.
So a full agenda. So I was in the studio all day, every day. And then on top of that, producing music, mixing for friends, and like I was
and
also
teaching
all the time.
maybe
and teaching
at times as well.
Occasionally, yeah, teaching still.
Right.
So this was like full agenda. Then I kind of quit TV because, like I said, it's a war that you have to. How do you say that in English? You have to keep up. So you have to show up. You have to know people. You have to establish a certain public relations side of things that it's more important. With music, if you do it good, the music speaks by itself. You don't have to go around and like ask for a favor or stuff like that. So producing music and releasing music, publishing the music or the occasional post, you know, like be present on the social media also helps.
I mean, of course.
It's a business, you know, I have to keep it up a bit. Fast forward a couple of years more, here we are. So this is the latest incarnation of the Spaventi Mastering Studio, because nowadays, family, bigger house,
right?
A lot of scenes and production gear accumulated over the years.
You're a synth lover also,
I'm a synth lover, synth addict, like this, that's my passion.
Modular synths as well.
When I'm not working for anybody, I'm still in sounds. I'm still like doing my thing with the synths and producing music. This you hear in the background is all stuff that I produced here and there.
So you sort of have your own production set up home?
Yes, there's a small room equipped with like gear, so there I make music and check the occasional job and have a mirrored system so I can open the sessions there if I need the stuff. This is the mastering setup, so if I'm mastering, I'm here.
And I'm sure all of our audience is looking forward to see all of the gear that you actually use and how you employ. I know there's a lot of stuff to go over it.
Obviously, you don't get all of these all together. It's like this is step by step.
Yes.
And every step is well directed to a certain need or a certain wish that you have. And the last thing that I got, one of the most important pieces in a mastering setup, is the mastering transfer console.
There we go.
So this thing.
The backbone from Manley.
The Manley backbone. And the reason why I only got it recently is two reasons. One reason is that it's hell expensive.
Yeah, one is money.
Which is a good reason. The second reason is that it's not so easy to find.
True.
Because Manley only produced limited versions of this. It's not on production anymore. So you only find the occasional guy who is either not mastering anymore or got it and then the business changed, so he's getting rid of it. And seriously, I found it on a Facebook group, by the way, Worldwide Mastering Engineers Facebook group, top level people
totally
there.
Agree.
Totally cool.
You get to see all of the gear before it goes to rework.com.
Yes, it's more direct channel, trustworthy people, there's reputation, there's help, it's a great forum. Possibly on the reason why I use Facebook still. But
True.
Manley backbone online for like 6 hours, 7 hours. I saw it, message right away. And I literally messaged right before another guy who eventually got another one. But this is how they go. So it's like it shows up, somebody wants it on the list, got it.
I mean, this is your centerpiece. That's where every kind of piece of...
This is what gives you the option to interact with the computer, because the computer represents your central point anyway, because nowadays you work digital, so everything
the playback
is there.
And the recording,
the recording, the processing, the archiving, filing, everything is there. So actually nowadays you could just master with the computer in the box, which is nothing wrong, man, because like sometimes it just does the job. But if you can, you use Outboard gear for the simple reason that first of all it's more real. There's something about running the sound through Outboard that at the same time represents a difference, an inherent difference with the computer, because you're not using digital data, but you're using, electricity.
Correct.
But also is the not emotional, but like human factor side. You're not staring at the screen, moving a mouse around. It's very much more tactile and real, the interaction that you have. So
it's not only the outcome, but it's the process, as always, that also makes you reach other outcomes, because that experience is different.
Eventually, it's the outcome, of course, but because if you wanted to be real, like if you want to be realistic, you could master something, you could master it again through the gear, and then you could compare the masters. And I'm not telling you that the gear will win, no. Yeah. Like maybe the in-the-box master instead centers the bullseye better, because that's what the music needs. It's all about what the music needs. But the way you reach that goal, that's up to you. So
Makes
if you have
total
good
sense.
monitoring, if you have experience, and you know what the music needs, in the box or outboard gear, do your thing. The client will barely be able to hear the difference.
Or they don't really mind.
Or they don't care because it sounds great. You know,
As long
that's
as
the point.
yeah, they're happy and the music is being treated well.
Yeah, yeah. But in my career, I've had a bit of everything. Classic mastering stories, which are like we have a lot of fun with in mastering. It's like the guy who is like, "Oh, dude, I think you mastered everything in digital because it sounds like this." I mastered everything in analog. Classic. So you don't like the sound? Just say so. It's like you don't, you know, or like you know. Another thing that is very important that I understood quite initially is that communications and relations are important as a good job. The only way you can actually get a good job done is if you interact with the client, if you communicate with the client, if the client is able to tell you exactly what they want or an idea what they want, and you are able to deliver that. Then again, classic stories, you know, it's like you start mastering something, then you have a conversation with the client and realize that the direction was another one, so then you just
that's classic. You know, it's like getting to know what they really want. It's probably half of the job.
Yeah. Once you know that and you master it, then most of the time it's version 1 approved because it's clear.
Yeah.
But anyway, this thing let you basically, I would say, interact with the computer, meaning that the computer will send the sound into this thing. This thing will accept the sound through a certain number of sources, and it will distribute the sound on a sequence of the outboard gear that you see around. So all the outboard gear is basically connected to this. This is like a transfer console, but also an insert switcher, so you can just enable and disable gear.
So it's let's say a patch bay with instant inserts on, with an input and output stage, as I can see as well, and some extra with some
extra control like inverse channels, inverse phase, more technical stuff like add some like an output fader if you want to do a fade out or fade in. Add differential signal so you can enlarge the stereo field. MS encoding here, swappable for 5. I mean, it's built by engineers for engineers, and it's just clear. Some mastering engineers say that it has a certain sound. To be perfectly honest with you, I wouldn't even know how to compare that because you have to do a serious test. You would have to record the sound through and then rebuild the same patch without the thing and re-record. It's like, it's trivial. It sounds, I don't know, does it sound great? I don't know, but it's just solid.
You did have different machines back in the
Before
days.
I had another one called the Liaison, Dangerous Music, which is like only this part.
Right.
Without the inputs, outputs, and all the game facilities. It's an insert switcher. So in fact, that one is supposed to be used with their version of this, which is the Dangerous Master. But the whole bunch cost quite sensitive amount of money. So
and did you notice any difference when operating between the mastering backbone from Mali and
yes, definitely. Liaison? Now I can pilot the gear. That's a massive difference. A lot of improvements.
Because you can gain stage in between.
I can gain stage before and after the chain. I could patch at the back to be able to monitor points in the chain. I can select my inputs in real time, so some in-box or converter. I got 2 outputs at the same time, feeding both converters, so I can always compare. With the old system, I had to use a patch bay. And then you have to go through a jack patch, but now it's there, unused. Just like, and now, again, another improvement. This thing now, it's all in. So there's no funny patch bay thing. They're only like pristine cabling coming in and going out. So you do that once.
Keeps the noise floor super low.
Super low, mastering grade, super low.
Okay, so that's the central hub. Really nice.
Now that I have it, I could not use it, let's say. Right before this and right after this, there are a couple of other pieces because this thing only has 8 inserts, and as you can see, there are more options. But there is a logic behind, how I built this, and the logic is simple. In mastering, you normally do either equalizing, or you do dynamic processing of some kind, or you do some other type of special processing. So, and also my logic is very simple. I could invest into very, very, very high quality gear that gives you that transparent sound if you go out of the box and back in, but in the box it's already really good.
It is.
So if I want to go out of the, if I want to, make the effort of like converting in and out and taking the time, and there's got to be a good reason. And the good reason for me, at least from my philosophy, is either a very good, precise sounding equalizer, or something that adds color.
Makes sense.
And also, one little detail aside is compression, because compression in analog, when it's clean, it's still somehow, I don't know, there's something about it. Like you can get close with plugins, but you know, it's easier. It's like this thing. I'm talking about compression because this is the last bit in the chain before I go into the converter. This is an opto leveling compressor from Maselec, and it's a Rolls-Royce. It's like that kind of unit that you run the sound through, and no matter what sounds good.
Always better. Yeah.
The Maselec guy is a genius. Like, some of these guys exist. They design superior quality gear. But anyway, I was talking about logic. So equalization, dynamic or special processing. So what I did is, equalization is here.
Yeah.
Special processing color is here. Dynamics this side.
Makes
That's
sense.
simple.
Makes total sense.
This is my first stage of equalizing. Like I was saying, this is a Goli Porte Grande style EQ.
The nice flag, I can see.
Yeah, I flagged it, custom made, Italian flag.
There you go.
The latest EQ that I got. I used to have a Crane Song Ibis, also cool EQ, but somehow it was great for bass, great for highs. Mid-range was a bit, I don't know, trumpety on my ear, a bit. There was something that didn't convince me.
Okay.
For a period, I had borrowed the Elysia Music Q.
The big one. Yeah.
Fucking mid-range, man. Then I heard the mid-range of that, and I was like, okay, the Ibis, it colors in a way that I don't necessarily like. Some people love the Ibis. I do miss it now that I sold it, but then again, just because we like them all. But I sold it to get this instead, and this is much more precise, you know. This is stepped, MS encoder, frequency range. This is a
giant knobs.
Giant hand, like it's cool, and it's cool in front of you to use. And I'm getting to know it more and more because I only have it for maybe a year or so. Okay. This is not an EQ they use a lot. It's like you don't do 4 dB with this. Already half dB. There's a whole, I don't know, it interacts with the music. You know, that's another thing about using computer or hardware. An EQ in the computer, you cut 2 dB there, it sounds like that. An EQ like this, you cut 2 dB there, the rest of the spectrum changes. It's like the relation of the instruments and the way the whole sound is, it's different to us. And so it takes a while to get to know it and what you know.
And this is the Goli Precision Mastering.
PG, yeah.
All right.
Precision Mastering EQ Porte Grande style, which means that you have like, basically it's 4 bells. Okay. You can get filters at the edges, but mostly it's bell type kind of stuff.
So very surgical and...
well, not surgical in a way that you can do really like a steep cut, like a George Massenburg style or digital style or Waze. It's more like tonal. It's like tonal shaping, yeah.
Got it.
And also the Q thing is, it's somehow like, I don't know, different. Like it interacts with the music. You really have to use your ears, let's say.
All right.
But before this one, I've got a classic buck sandal type of EQ. So this is for the edges of the spectrum. So I have it now hardwired because like I was like, I'm always gonna filter, you know, like before most of the time. And I always think again, like if for some reason I need something before, after, I just use a plugin. Like if for some reason I have to filter after the gear, I use a plugin. So it's all very versatile, really. It's like,
I mean, this is a good cue for asking you real quick, analog versus digital. I know you for a long time. I know you're like a huge advocate for analog gear when it fits the purpose.
Gear,
and the budget, I should say.
Yeah.
But I also know you master in a hybrid fashion, or sometimes you stay completely into the box if that's what the music deserves.
Exactly. I'm for like what gets the job done in the best way. It's really about that. Like, and I'm really honest with myself. I'm like, if I'm mastering something, sometimes I do try to compare a master in the box to a master running through the gear, and sometimes, well, more than
what you think of,
more than what you expect in the box is fine. But it also makes sense because if you get something that needs color, then you run it through the gear. But if you get a production that has been already taken care of nicely and it sounds good and everything,
you don't really need to change it.
No, the least you want to do to it, the more transparent you want to be, the best. So that being in the box is just as transparent as you can get.
I'm gonna ask you this real quick. Yeah. Top 2 plugins that you use every day?
Dyne One.
Okay.
Lipwing. Very versatile. Very, very good sounding. very.
What do you use that for mainly?
Mostly parallel multiband compression, what it was designed for, but more than what you expect for standard multiband.
Okay.
So like without the parallel option, just as a multiband. Also bass control, treble control, sibilance. It's a versatile tool. Another tool that is built by engineers for engineers. So paramount is sound quality, ease of use, and results. Okay. And that's it. The other one is DMG stuff. I would mention Limitless.
Their limiter, yeah.
That thing is right. You can make it sound like anything. It's like the
and,
more
and
you
not
use it,
that
more.
you don't have an analog-based limiter.
No, that's the thing. No, but as a digital limiter, it's like, I mean, I've got like, I don't know, 5 or 6, 7 different maximizer limiters if you count them all. They all give you something, but at the end of the day, the DMG is the one I get to use the most. And why? Because it's so versatile and so good that it gets the job done.
All right, so that's on the 2 plugins, guys.
It's on the 2 plugins.
Keeping up with the gear. So you got these 2 guys in chain. So
yeah,
one
these 2 guys in
the
chain
other.
feeding the Manley. The Manley has the various options here in order. Massive, passive.
Plenty of
this
tone.
doesn't need to be introduced. API 5500 doesn't need to be introduced. So I got tubes and FET. I got rock and roll. Number 3, Titans. Weird Dave Hill design compressors. Very, very hi-fi. They are very classy sounding. It's like I love them. Like, and also they have digital control, so it's super easy to recall, versatile. You can use them for fast peak limiting, global level loudness control. You can use them for like getting the sound bigger. They work super well with techno. Like with techno, they work really well.
Okay.
To follow up, these are the converters, so in and out.
So using 2 of those.
In and out, and this one is only analog to digital. Fetso, my sort of secret thing. Well, not so secret anymore. It's going to be on the internet now. But this thing is not what you normally would see in a mastering studio. As a matter of fact, I bought it for production because for drum bassing and the kind of stuff for tracking is cool. But now lately, fine-tune it and I use it for a specific reason, which is high frequency control. Okay. It permits you to get a brighter sound without being really annoying or
piercing,
or hurting your ears. And it's analog, and it really has an empirical lab. They know what they do. Another brand that you should. I mean, Distressor is a classic. So, this is one of my faves. So if you have to name 2 devices that I would keep with
on
me
the analog
along
domain, which ones? That's one of the 2.
The Anamod is
Anamod ATS1 analog tape simulator.
Analog tape simulator. I think it's the second thing that I bought after the Avalon. It's just tape. You know, tape sounds great. Tape sounds absolutely great, and they realized a device that gives you the tape sound with mastering quality. That's all.
So that fits
mastering
within the box where you're saying special. Special boxes.
Yes. You can use it for compression. You can use it for bite, for saturation. You can use it to get that warmth of the. You can use it to get that extra bottom, I guess, extra tops when you use the Ampeg card. Color. Plus, it introduces a serious 65 dB minus noise. So, I mean, you don't use it for clean production. So. Right. But electronic music, again, when you have the kind of warm house or disco or ambient, it's like you lose the bass. Compression, Maselec speaks for itself. The classic stereo opto Maselec compressor, it's like butter. And it's just musical. If I had to use a word to describe it, musical. You don't hear the compression going. You hear something nice added to the music. It's very cool. Mastering limiter. This is to get the sound as loud as you can and get that extra level of compression to make it even louder before it reaches the computer. So before it goes through the converters back in. I use it mostly for vinyl mastering. Okay. Because for vinyl mastering, you don't have to go that extra step that you get in digital. And you can get already nice and solid and nicely analog loud before you record. Already on the analog domain, So then the vinyl master would simply be the print after this into the converter, and that's it. Okay. I've got one other compressor here, the Fute. Yeah. Why? Because this is what you might expect by a classic compressor. This one can do it all. And it's very musical again. But it's specialistic, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't do musical glue compression with that because I've got the Maselec. I wouldn't do gentle, very hi-fi sounding tonal control because I got the Titans. But when I need solid limiting, leveling, just simply pumping.
That's there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what is it? It's a VCA design.
It's a VCA design with a very versatile scheme of controls. You can do sidechain control, you can do time constant control, you can add an output transformer, you can engage or disengage the automatic attack release, threshold ratio gain, everything stepped.
Feed forward and feed back, you can see.
Faster feed forward, feed back, high pass filter in the sidechain, RMS or peak mode, attack release control, non-linear.
Flexible.
So you have this quicker portion of the compression and smoothens out for drums especially. It's great. And then the bypass.
Got it.
And it's compact, it's stereo, it's Fute knows what it does again. You see that in a lot of mastering studios. So.
Yeah, indeed.
Last but not least, the Avalon. Again, color, tube. I don't use this for compression. I use it to just crank the sound through the tubes because I modified. A lot of mastering guys modify their gear for a reason or another. Some people like to modify by default, just to add this or that. Couple of pieces I modified. This is modified, different tubes. They saturate more, they're louder, and they get a solid and warmer mid-range compared to the tubes that you get in stock. Okay. And since I changed the tubes, I never went back because then it makes sense to use it. This is like, I give you a quick example. House track, cleanly produced in the computer, not clearly, but cleanly, so it's tight, but it's somehow computer, so it lacks that bit of extra engagement that you get with the three-dimensional added by the tubes. You master it in the box, couple of steps before the end limiter, you run it out into that, get it back in, 95% of the time sounds fat.
I guess the job done, okay.
So that's why it's the first thing that I bought, because it makes sense to go out of the computer. Plus the passive EQ stage here, it's a classic. You got the air, you got the bass.
Yeah.
It's passive, you know, so if you boost the mid-range, it gets focused there. It's cool, man. Like, it's a cool device.
Cool stuff. All right. Marco, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, my pleasure.
And yeah, till next time, hopefully the next studio.
Hopefully the next studio,
Cheers,
next time.
mate.